All right, super excited about this next session. As was said, Michael is joining this session on the automated network supply chain. Jay Turner, come on out. John Nolan and Diego Neto from EU Networks. Welcome, gentlemen. If you could line up kind of based on this, so maybe Jay right here.
Yep.
Nice job.
All right, so we don't have any slides, which is great.
Fascinating.
So we've got a lot of experience up here in actually implementing the APIs and helping build out this automated supply chain. So just to kind of set the scene, you may have seen some of the stats that were maybe in a slide or two before. We have about 100 service providers worldwide that have either implemented the LSO APIs or are committed to implementing the APIs. In our research, we track companies throughout the adoption lifecycle. We have well over 170 service providers from around the world in that adoption lifecycle. And when we talk about the adoption lifecycle, we're talking about it from the interest through to implementation. It doesn't mean everybody's implementing them, so don't get that confused. But that's kind of the scope of the activity. But let me give a chance for the folks on the panel to give their perspective when you think about an automated supply chain. Is that the appropriate description of what we're building out? And how do you see it? And what happens if it doesn't work? So maybe Jay, you lead off.
Yeah, certainly. I do think that's what we're doing, and I think it's very important, with the way that the enterprise or the way the industry has moved. There's no more panacea. There's no single supplier that's going to be able to address the customer's needs. So we all need to come together and figure out how to work together and offer options to the customer. And is it an automated supply chain? From our perspective, yes. I don't know that that's how the customer sees it. I think they just see it as truly network as a service. They want their network, they want it as a service, and they want to be able to control it. And it's very simple from their perspective, I believe. Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, I think supply chain is a good term to use within this community, but as Jay said, it's not necessarily, they don't expect to be exposed, basically, to the end customers don't expect to be exposed. I think also supply chain conjures up the concept of ordering things, and you're able to order things, so now we can quickly relate to that, but it goes well beyond that, obviously. In the supply chain, you've got to now deliver those services and fulfill them and operate those services with those suppliers as well, so it's a very sophisticated supply chain, for sure.
Yeah, very good. John, very heavily involved in helping build this out.
So I think despite the excitement of AI and where the industry's headed, we all see the shiny destination on the horizon. Customers still want it better, faster, cheaper, which puts tremendous pressure on all the operators to work more closely together, smooth off those rough edges on how they interface with each other. And you've heard me say it many times, the hockey adage of skate to where the puck is going. This is where the puck is going. You're not, as you said, you're not going to be able to do it all yourself. Nobody owns a ubiquitous network. So figuring out how to implement tools and systems, the LSO APIs, to be able to interface cleanly, to check order status, or place an order, check order status, all that automatically and in real time, and hopefully with no disputes on the back end. So it's where the industry's headed. It's just, a bumpy path to get there.
Yeah, very good. Diego?
Well, from my point of view, the word supply chain is probably the most appropriate term. And I think what's important to understand there is that if we keep considering in this multi-vendor environment, if you keep considering all the services as individual parts, you will end up having different terms, different conditions. And ultimately, the customer pays the price for this. So to answer your question, what happens when it breaks? Well, the customer pays, and there's bad customer experience, and this is what is holding back a bit. What are we trying to do here? So this is what happens, and in this scenario, it's fundamental that we keep investing in developing unified, standardized interface to make sure that we can all stitch together all these pieces so that we consider them as one supply chain, and the customer sees two in that way.
Oh, very good. So everyone up here has been involved in either the buy side or the sell side or both. Maybe if you could start out kind of dealing with the buy side perspective. John, maybe talk about your experience, former experience at AT&T, if you can kind of give us a perspective from that. And then anyone else want to chime in on the buy side? And Diego, obviously I know you're on the sell side.
Sure. So before I was on the buy side, I was on the sell side. And I think that the ecosystem is so complex. You've heard the saying, compensation drives behavior, or what gets measured gets done. I think oftentimes you focus very narrowly on the metrics of how you're judged, and whether that's cost improvement, providing a better price. Hopefully, people have expanded their views to take into account, the lowest price isn't always, the best choice. If it takes longer to get installed, it's a bad customer experience. So, figuring out, okay, it's more than just price, it's how fast it can get in, time to revenue, customer experience. And then really the thing that I wonder about is down the road when your customer that has bought connectivity from you says, I'm now using it for an AI application, is everyone in that ecosystem certified with, the carrier Ethernet certification, or do you have a weak link in there? Because customer cares about end-to-end, not your piece of the puzzle. So, I think at least the buy component needs to continue to evolve to make sure it's taking into that, future forward thoughts and figuring out how to do it with fewer people and not have as many disputes between the parties as the world gets more complex.
Yeah, you caused me to think about something that came up in a discussion yesterday. So I want to revisit that, but I'll let you guys deal with this, and I'll come back to how do you, basically what I'm trying to do is say, how do you define a market leader, right? Because you mentioned certification, so maybe we could circle back to that. But Jay?
So, from my perspective on this, at the end of the day, all of our success is directly correlated with the success of our customers, and it's no longer a siloed type thing. I want the customer to be able to achieve what they want, and what John just said about it may not just be the lowest cost. It typically isn't. So being able to offer that selection, that cornucopia to the customer, and then we deliver what the customer has asked for, and if the customer is dissatisfied or if the customer's needs change, being able for them to very easily switch. That makes me happy. At the end of the day, if my customer's happy, I'm happy, even if it means the customer went to someone that was a better fit for them. I don't want to lose a customer, but I want them happy. Yeah. And I think that this type of scenario allows that.
So John had mentioned certification.
Yep.
You guys are certified.
We are. I think we were the first to be certified. I'm not sure if we're still the only one, but yeah, we're certified on all 4 of the LSO Mplify. I'm going to keep calling it MEF. I apologize. Mplify APIs, and we're really excited we were able to do that. It was a great effort on the part of the team, and what also makes me happy is that we then turned around and wrote an adapter and put it into the public as an open source project, so that everyone could benefit from the work and the lessons that we learned. And then obviously we'll then learn from those implementations as well, and it continues to evolve. It's a great opportunity, and I compliment the organization for helping us do that.
Excellent. So Michael, you've worked with both buy and sell side players and have more experience probably than any other company in working with these What are you seeing as the primary driver for the interest on both the buy side and the sell side? Our research initially looked at accelerated cycle time, order cycle times, faster time to revenue, improved customer experience. What are you hearing today is the motivator?
It's quite, obviously a big motivation would be if some of your big customers come in and say, we want you to implement the APIs, and you're going to have to implement them in a certain time frame, or we'll go to the other suppliers. But actually, interestingly, we're seeing the other direction, where the sellers, the suppliers themselves are saying, I've got to standardize the way I do business with anybody, and I need to put APIs out there. And we've seen them even be quite creative. Like, not every buyer is sophisticated enough to be able to use APIs. So they looked and said, well, why don't we just build a LSO compliant portals, for example? And now we talked about the agents earlier, but give that for a cohort of their buyers. They may not ever want to come through, a API, because that's an expensive thing to integrate an API. But what they can do by offering alternative means like buyer portals or agents as part of that portal is that they can standardize how people engage with them.
Right.
So it works both ways.
Right. So, for those that are not really following this closely, how you actually implement the LSO APIs or automate your processes, you have direct implementation. You can use a portal. You can use an adapter, like what they just mentioned. You can work with companies that are building out specialized solutions that can kind of bolt onto your BSS systems, or you can work with a BSS solution provider. But maybe, Diego, how did you implement the APIs? What was your process, and what were the goals that you were trying to achieve here?
Well, we started at LSO our journey with API implementation a few years ago. We were really looking for something, about 3 years ago, probably? And we were really looking for something. At that time, we were really not saying, we want to implement the LSO API. So we want something that our customers are going to use, that's going to serve us. And looking at the different possibilities, we actually found in the LSO standard a very solid model. I must say, it looked a bit intimidating at first. You had to really take documentation, a lot to understand, a lot to go through. But after looking into it, we found that to be a perfect solution, really fitting what we wanted to do. At that time, we had to complement that LSO offering with some proprietary API that were not covering some of our needs. They were actually already with that NaaS vision in mind. So I'm talking about things like quickly retrieve a price without having to make a POQ and a formal quote. I just want a price. But in time, we saw this, let's call it holes, getting covered more and more. But the idea has always been developing an API platform that was, I call it a customer portal for computers. So something that all our customers, all our partners, suppliers, aggregator, whoever wants to use it, is going to find it extremely familiar, something he can easily integrate. I know with LSO, we found a very good solution. We have really great experience so far.
So during the preparation for this panel, we had some discussion about the challenges, and I thought one of the comments you made about the challenges was interesting. You want to elaborate on what you think are the biggest challenges, and maybe some of the other folks can talk about that as well?
Absolutely. No, thanks for that. That's a topic that's very close to my heart, so thanks for the question. Just for everyone to understand, even though I've been working in telco for almost a decade now, I come from a software development background, so I do have a different perspective on things. And when I start seeing a lot of struggle, a lot of frictions in developing those things, I started to understand what the problem is. But what I saw, at least from my perspective, was the problem wasn't the technology. The technology is there. It's not the investment. All the people represented in this room, they are investing significant time and resources on developing the solution. And in the end, my idea is really about the culture. There's a very famous quote that I usually use, is that the digital transformation, when it's done right, it's like you have a caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. When it's not done right, you get a very fast caterpillar. I have the feeling that in our business, most people are targeting the very fast caterpillar, but for a mindset problem, not because that's what they want to do. And so this is a challenge that requires profound transformation in some organization. You know, isn't easy. Change is difficult by its own nature. And the larger the organization, the harder and slower the change is. But I really believe that to go past the situation, the only way forward is really cultivating a software mindset with the organization. Everyone in the organization should really develop a working familiarity with what the technology does, how it works. This in a way that is compatible with what they do. I'm not asking a CEO to be able to write code, but understanding that, and at the same time having the developers understand the domain they work in, so that they can really evolve from being the team who does support what the business tells them to do, to be co-creator with that. For me, that is the way forward, and that's what can really drive success. It's the only thing that can drive true return on investment in this scenario.
Okay, excellent. How about John? Thoughts on challenges?
I agree with everything he said. If you have goal alignment and an understanding of what your partner organizations do, I think that sets you up for success. I think some organizations are held back by legacy systems, and in the example of the Caterpillar trying to make incremental change there, is hard versus setting a bold vision to get to the future, the butterfly stage. So,
Michael,
yeah,
all that implementation experience, and I want to also maybe maybe if you could share a little bit of perspective on the time it takes to implement some APIs.
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge you're going to have, right? Because every partner you're working with is going to be at a different stage of enablement on their internal systems. So one of the strategies we promote is that you should think about how you standardize from the inside out, whether you're talking to customers or suppliers, and use whatever means you can, because then once you've standardized your processes, it's about those guys coming on board into your system, so you're taking control, rather than kind of trying to preach to the masses and get them all to move in the same time frames. It's not going to happen. They don't have budgets, their systems are at different levels, they don't have systems sometimes, and so a couple of things as well is like we within our platforms as well, we can actually semi-automate things. We can, so if you're looking for certain, POQs and you have some way of responding to serviceability requests, you can actually automate that directly in the platform. You don't have to integrate with the BSS, but you need to have the rules. Pricing similar like that, you can get a quote back very quickly within the platform itself. Now, if you have a platform that can give you a quote, you integrate that via an API, but not everybody's ready for that, And how do you interoperate with the maximum number of providers? Because the worst thing you could end up with is having, 4 or 5 providers on LSO APIs, and then everybody else on unless they're giving you a large volume of business, and then everybody else being dealt with manually. Now your back office teams have a real headache trying to. They have an extra task to do.
Yeah. So, when we talk about the APIs and the whole automation process, you're dealing with different functions, right? The business functions, the operational functions, including performance monitoring, things like that. But you're also dealing with the payloads, and that was something that Pascal talked quite a bit about in his discussion yesterday. What's your goal in terms of? I mean, Jay, you talked about it really is about a NaaS solution. What's your goal as a company? Is it to build out the support for a wide variety of payloads with sort of that big NaaS vision? And Diego, also, I know you've got some opinions on the payloads as well. But.
Yeah, I would love to boil the ocean. It's going to take a while to do that, but I certainly see going wide with our implementations, and I'm hoping that's the direction that the organization moves, and really begin listening to the feedback loop from the customers, from the enterprises that are using it, and kind of ebbing and flowing based on those needs and really driving to that outcome. So I think we're on a great journey so far. This is wonderful.
Okay, excellent. Diego?
Yes, on the payload, this is a very fundamental part. Where to start? I believe that one of the best things of the LSO framework is the pluggability of the product into the envelope. I think that is a very, very strong design that really fits what we're trying to do here. Now, what's the main problem we encountered, but I believe everyone is encountering, is that we have, at the time, we had a very limited set of payload defined by MEF at the time, now for Mplify now. But our businesses, they sell a lot of things. They don't sell just carrier Ethernet. So you cannot ask a business to implement an API for carrier Ethernet and another API for anything else if you really want to have that NaaS approach. But this is where the pluggability of the product definition comes into play. That you can define your own payload. You can do that in a way that are compatible. The Mplify at the time provided the handbook. Now you have even more tool to how to build a LSO compatible payload, and that's the approach we took. So we implemented all the MEF standards, all the Mplify standards, but we also have our own custom payloads, still LSO compatible. So I believe to move this forward, that is the right approach to have. This is the most effective one. On one hand, it's important to keep working together to make sure that we can come up with product definition for everything we sell that are common to the entire business, because that is going to drive ultimate automation. On the other hand, you don't want this to hold back implementation, so it's also really important to advertise and to encourage the usage of the marketplace, where you can go there, create your payloads, everyone can see them. That's also going to give us, everyone, a sense about what the demand is, what the next project, the next standardization project should be. So I think that is the way forward, really having these two parallel routes that to be both encouraged.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So if you think about the payloads, I think we've identified 20 plus payloads, right? And there are several that are, well, if you go to the LSO marketplace, there's a really nice setup there. So we have standardized payloads. We have what we call pre-standard payloads, where you can submit like the payloads that you're talking about, and then future work on some of the payloads. Some of our research that we've done, and we're continually updating this, but if you think about like the market, you're going to have to ask the questions about the different APIs, the different payloads. What's your buy side, sell side perspective? So we're trying to collect all that type of data, but some of the initial data that we got, particularly coming out of the APAC region, is a strong emphasis on the basic carrier Ethernet services, interest in wavelength services, interest in internet access. And if you think about the higher layer services, SD-WAN, SASE, not quite as much at this stage, right? So they're trying to get that foundational connectivity first. But Michael, what are you seeing? What are they coming back with?
Yeah, I think it's the services that you just talked about there, in that kind of order. And it certainly was carrier Ethernet access initially that people were trading, for that last mile, but internet access, bitstream, layer 2 bitstream now, so different varieties of things that they can ultimately provide in the access side. On the SD-WAN SASE, the difficulty there is really the lack of, you could order SD-WAN, ordering an SD-WAN SASE solution is like different for every vendor.
Right.
So there's, and you have to actually order the kit first, let's call it, and then when you have the kit, and you can definitely do that over the Mplify APIs, but when you're managing that service, you're often having to use the vendor-specific management and things like that to do it. So it's a different paradigm. I think the idea of having a multi-vendor SD-WAN SASE solution, we have some models in Mplify for SD-WAN SASE, but they're limited in what their scope would be. So I think that you're going to get a model more like, can I order everything I need, all the services and everything that I need, the support desks and everything for that, SD-WAN SASE service through the Mplify APIs, which, it's possible to put packages together around that for different parts of your market. And that all can be ordered in combination with the underlay services and the interconnect services. There's also things like virtual cross connects you've got to order as well.
Yeah, very good. So I mentioned the different functions, right? The business functions, and John, I know you're heavily involved in part of that picture. You want to talk a little bit about your solution, highlight. You covered. I think you had a press release earlier the week.
So again, we've been around 20 years creating value for our clients, saving them money, finding overcharges, helping them resolve those. As the world gets more complex, the goal isn't better audits, it's no audits. It's figuring out how to, as I said in the opening, figure out how to smooth out those rough edges between suppliers, and whether that's a solution that we worked on with Mplify to create smart contracts and basically do a first bill review before the circuit's ever stood up, so that it's then loaded on a blockchain and there are no more disputes on that circuit, or whether it's our enterprise customers or the carrier's enterprise customers that their data center demands are skyrocketing, and the back office inside carriers to manage those data center connections and inventories just doesn't exist. The data centers didn't evolve from a historical set of standards when it comes to how you order or interface with them. So we're excited about our partnership with Rackonomics and combine that with our physical audit capabilities to go out and help carriers untangle the mess in those data centers and then keep it clean going forward. So we're excited.
Awesome. I just wanted to kind of circle back to this idea that I thought of when you were talking earlier, John, is about building out this supply chain where you can rely on all of your different partners, right? And I think about it as, you've got the certified services, you've got the certified APIs. What do you all see in terms of like building out that trust? We're going to cover that more in the next session, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on how important that is to be able to have that trust in that automated supply chain.
I think it's quintessential. That's what's going to make this successful, and it's not just, or at least from my perspective, it's not just the trust between us as suppliers and our customer. It's horizontal as well. PCCW Global, we have a really great relationship with the EU networks that we built out. As much of the software that's involved in that, it's knowing that we can call each other, we can have that conversation, we can, at the end of the day, we can tell each other our baby's ugly if we have to, because we understand that that's coming from a good place. And trust me, we have.
I'm not sure.
They've told us we were doing crazy things. We've told them they were doing crazy things, and we work it out. It works
awesome.
great.
Awesome. Diego, you want to comment on the partnership? Because I think that's a pretty
well, I think that's a
example.
very good use case of what can be done. Like what we've been doing over the last few months, we've been developing this partnership with PCCW Consult Connect, where we integrated both our system all via LSO API. I'm not sure, I believe that's probably a first, at least that's the first time I heard it, to expand their footprint with our data centers. And that is something fantastic for the both of us, because, and from the really concrete business point of view. On one hand, we've got, the Consult Connect application got an extended footprint, so they have more reach. And from EU Network's point of view, we got direct access to all the Consult Connect customer base. Mm-hmm. And that is something fantastic, and it's really good that everyone knows that it has been implemented using the standard API. So to come back from what we were saying earlier, the problem isn't technical. That can be done, and we did it.
Awesome. So we just have a couple of minutes left. I did want to ask each person for, kind of look out into the future a little bit, and just give me your thought as what do you think is going to be the next big trend? I know, Michael, you've already touched on it, I think, in your presentation before. That's going to be an important part of it. But you want to lead us off, and then maybe everybody else can kind of just take a few a little bit of time to.
I mean, I think we've been discussing it broadly at this conference. It's either NaaS for AI or AI for NaaS. You know, and actually, the more deeply you think about those, they start to converge, and you're trying to.
I thought Gorka made a really good point, right? Yeah. It's across every element of NaaS, right?
So I think AI has the potential really to take care of some of these sort of interoperability problems that we have. You know, make things easier for carriers or the providers to interoperate, to extend their networks basically into other footprints. I think that the catalyst from a commercial perspective could very well be, NaaS for AI. Yeah. Got bucket loads of money. I mean, money is very constrained in operator environment. They haven't got a lot of money, so when you start asking them to stand up APIs and do integrations, they have to spin up a team to do it. So maybe this is the services that, these new services where there's a lot of potential revenue there, will drive the investment that's needed, you know? Yeah.
I know we don't have the time to go into that, but I'll probably touch on it in the breakout session later today, but we're having companies that are redefining themselves as AI infrastructure providers, and they're starting to report revenue.
Yeah.
AI-related revenue. You think about how you stand out, right? John, Diego?
So yesterday I heard somebody mention you're either going to be a leader in this space or a laggard. I think that resonates. This train is moving so fast down the track. I think there is a place for fast followers, but you'd better be watching and lining up your assets to be able to take advantage of this, or you will be a laggard. As the complexity ratchets up, the capabilities are amazing for end users and our enterprise customers, but if you're sitting in a CFO seat, the question is, do we have adequate controls in place? Are we able to ensure that we're billing our customers correctly and that we're being billed correctly, and that as a multi-vendor environment to provide a solution, sort of like a three-legged race, is that a clunky three-legged race where you're following and or are you running down the field jointly with your partners? And so it'll be exciting to watch.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry. Well, about AI, from my point of view, I don't really see that as a product, something you want to sell. I really see that as another tool we got to do what we do, to connect things. What I think is most interesting about it is that in order to work, these agent-based interactions, they need a strong foundation. They need systems that allow machines to talk with each other. And so this big push we're having now on AI, I really see as a very strong catalyst, or something, an accelerator for all the things we are discussing in this forum. And hopefully that is going to pave the way, not just to have a system that you can ask what you want in natural language, but really to what I see as really the true end game, which is truly autonomous network, where machines are able to talk with each other. Decide what needs to be done with small or not at all human intervention.
Very good.
I'll tack on one bit here. The Amazon outage a couple of weeks ago, I think really is an interesting example of how I see AI applying to this. I cannot imagine the number of people that were standing around that morning going, but we're in 2 availability zones. We're in all 3 availability zones. Why are we down? So that business logic that is getting so complex in this industry, being able to kind of abstract that away and put that behind an agent so that you can literally say, I want to be able to survive a US East 1 going down.
Yeah,
and it happens.
Yeah.
It gets deployed. That's going to be amazing.
There you go. That's what so you're going to type that into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we give it a go.
Or you're not even going to type it. You're just going to tell it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We got to wrap up. So let me just thank the panels.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan.